Mr. President, just a couple of days ago, the House passed by a huge margin, over 300 votes, a strong bill to permanently fix the National Flood Insurance Program. Those aspects of the so-called Biggert-Waters Act passed over a year ago that are unworkable, that are clearly creating real problems on the ground. This is great news, Mr. President, because unless we fix those very real problems, we would have major problems on our hands in the National Flood Insurance Program, not just in Louisiana, not just in Florida, not just in the Superstorm Sandy area, but in every state in the country, every state. It's not a question of if these issues are coming to your state. It's just a question of when and exactly to what extent. Now, over a year ago, we passed the Biggert-Waters Act, and that was an important reauthorization of the National Flood Insurance Program. And it also included reforms, and many of those reforms needed to happen to stabilize the financing of the program. What no one understood adequately then, however, is that those well-intended reforms in practice, in implementation by FEMA, would lead to unsustainable, completely unaffordable rate increases in a significant number of cases. That only began to be understood in the months after the bill was passed, as FEMA started to implement it, and as FEMA came to homeowners, came to state authorities, came to members of Congress, and began to lay out some of the rates that we would see in certain areas. Now, Mr. President, I'm not talking about modest rate increases. We need many modest rate increases to stabilize the financing of the program. I'm talking about completely unaffordable rate increases in some cases. Flood insurance rates going from $300 a year to $11,000 a year, or $19,000 a year, or $26,000 a year on a modest middle-class home, on a middle-class family that followed the rules every step of the way. We can't allow that to stand. First of all, it's fundamentally unfair. As I said, these middle-class families followed the rules every step of the way, built to the right elevation when they built their homes, never let their premiums lapse, never let their insurance lapse. And in that context, for them to be hit with truly unaffordable rate increases that could literally cause them to have to walk away from their home in some significant number of cases, not be able to afford to stay there, that's just plain wrong. Secondly, Mr. President, it's completely counterproductive, because one of the ways we stabilize the National Flood Insurance Program fiscally is to grow the program, to have more folks paying premiums, to have more folks covered, not fewer. And so this aspect of Biggert-Waters, which would lead to truly unaffordable rate increases in a significant number of cases, is unworkable from the very vantage point of the goal of Biggert-Waters to stabilize the system. So we can't let that stand for that reason either. The good news is, because of those very real problems, both the Senate and now the House has come together in a major bipartisan way to fix the issue. The Senate acted about a month ago, passing meaningful legislation. I was an original co-author. I was a strong supporter. And as I said a few minutes ago, the House acted 2 nights ago, Mardi Gras night in Louisiana terms, to take strong action to fix this program. Now, the House bill is stronger and more significant in several respects, mostly because the reforms in the House bill are permanent. It's not a timeout, as the Senate bill was. It is a permanent fix that creates a much higher degree of certainty and permanence immediately. Also, the House bill is fully paid for, with a modest premium increase on everybody's premiums, very, very modest, completely affordable to make sure that all of these changes are paid for. Because of these aspects of the House bill, because of the permanent nature of the fix, the fact that it would create certainty and predictability immediately moving forward for homeowners and for real estate markets, I think it's actually the preferable approach. And so I would urge all of us in the Senate to take that bill up at the soonest possible moment. And specifically, I would urge the distinguished majority leader to put that on the floor, to create time on the floor that we can deal with the House bill absolutely as soon as possible. Now, I know there'll be some attempt to obtain unanimous consent to pass the House bill immediately. Of course, I will consent. I'm all for that. But realistically, I don't think that's going to happen on the Senate floor. The Senate bill had some objectors. The Senate bill had some opponents, and so does the House bill. So realistically, I would urge the majority leader to create the time on the Senate floor to take this up and move through the process absolutely as quickly and as expeditiously as possible. That's the way it's actually going to work, and that's the way it's actually going to happen. And I hope we can do that as early as next week. I would strongly, strongly support our taking this up on the Senate floor as early as next week.